Should the Jazz trade up for the number one pick? Let's talk about it. It's the Hoops Nerd Show. All right, guys, like always, like the video, subscribe to the channel, especially if you're new here. Okay, so the discourse online between the Utah Jazz and the Washington Wizards is, should the Utah Jazz trade up for the number one pick? And there are a lot of Wizards fans online that have, for some reason, some sort of inkling that the Utah Jazz are going to trade Ace Bailey, last year's number 5 pick, who showed incredible promise, growth, humility, coachability, competitiveness. Oh, and he's really good at shooting threes, defending, and he improved his handle. He has a chance to be an incredible basketball player, potential star. The Jazz are apparently going to trade Ace Bailey and the number 2 pick to the Washington Wizards for the number 1 pick to draft AJ Dybantsa. Apparently, that's what Wizards fans think would be a fair trade for the Jazz. And it's all based off of, apparently, the Utah Jazz owner, Ryan Smith, is so in love with AJ Dybantsa that he'll throw out a number 5 pick that was earned through painful, strenuous tanking to get AJ Dybantsa when the Jazz have the number 2. I've got to tell you right now, and Wizards fans, if you're hoping for this, I got some bad news for you. It's not going to happen. No, the Utah Jazz should not trade for the number 1 pick. And let's talk a little bit about why. So, this number 2 pick by the Jazz, first off, is the highest the Jazz have ever jumped in it's the only time the Jazz have ever jumped in the lottery with their own pick in Jazz history. It's the highest the Jazz will ever pick in Utah Jazz history. Now, they've had picks in the past, and I hate to remind everyone, but the NBA penalized the Jazz for the Gail Goodrich trade, and they had to give a pick to the Los Angeles Lakers, and that pick became Magic Johnson. Just an absolute curse of an event that happened to the Utah Jazz. But this number 2 pick, this jump into the lottery, is arguably the greatest thing that's happened in Utah Jazz history since getting John Stockton and Karl Malone in consecutive drafts in 84 and 85. And yes, there was Darren Williams getting drafted, but Utah had to trade up to get him. Yes, the Jazz drafted Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell within 4 years, but the timelines were pretty spread, and the Jazz should have done what they did now with some tanking, so they could have added more prospects. For example, Luka Doncic could have potentially been in a Jazz uniform if Utah had done things right, and you'd have had a core of Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, and Luka Doncic. That's a big what if. But Utah didn't do it right. This is the first time Utah has done this right, and guess what? It worked out completely. And if you look at what Utah has done, the best moves, yes, Utah has made some mistakes in this rebuild, but they've actually pivoted really well. But here's just a list of the things the Jazz have done during this rebuild and that they would be throwing out the window if they traded up to the number 1 pick for AJ Dybantsa, when Darren Peterson will likely be there at number 2. And guess what? If they pick Darren Peterson at number 1, then Utah just gets AJ Dybantsa anyway. First, they were able to trade Donovan Mitchell, and part of that trade alongside all those picks was Lauri Markkanen. And they were able to keep Lauri Markkanen during a rebuild where they were losing games on purpose. It's been 4 years, and they kept Lauri Markkanen during the whole thing. You know, and I at times felt like you should just trade him so you didn't have to do so much incredibly hard tanking and get some assets back, but they were able to keep him. And the Jazz made the bet that I wouldn't have been willing to make. So you got to give credit to the Jazz. That was ballsy. It was incredible. Incredible move by the Jazz. You just got a hat tip to them doing some of the most, just incredible. That just takes cojones. All right, let's move on. Drafting Keontae George at number 16 and developing him into a potential all-star next year. If Keontae George gets his numbers, if his numbers stay where they were at this season for a full season, he's an all-star, or at least getting votes for all-star. If he takes a jump, he is no question an all-star. And if he takes a jump, there may be an argument for all-NBA. So that's number 2. Number 3, they traded non-Jazz picks and players that didn't completely work out, like Taylor Hendricks, Walter Clayton, and picks that weren't their own, except they have that one 3-part trade where they get the second best pick, but they did not trade any outright of their own picks, but other picks that they had accumulated during the rebuild for Jaren Jackson Jr. So Utah has Jaren Jackson Jr. now on this team and still controls all their picks. Next year's pick is more or less owned by other teams, but Utah will still pick in the first round next year. It's incredible. So if Utah wanted to trade a pick, it would be next year that they should trade because it has no chance of jumping. Next year, the lottery odds are going to be different. We'll probably talk about that another day. But Utah did not have to give up hardly anything of their. They didn't have to give anything of their own of incredible value to the Grizzlies for Jaren Jackson Jr. So they have Lauri Markkanen and Jaren Jackson Jr. in their prime going into next season. Also, part of the Wolves trade that the Jazz made, they were able to get Walker Kessler, who they will most likely be signing this offseason, and is the Rudy Gobert replacement. The front court for the Utah Jazz of Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., Walker Kessler, and add in there Ace Bailey too, although Ace Bailey's more of a 2-3, is one of the biggest, most versatile front courts in the NBA. Did I say backcourt? I meant front court. If I said front court and I thought I said backcourt, I apologize. But anyways, one of the most versatile front courts in the NBA. Utah has playoff positionality, versatility, whatever you want to call it. If Utah needs to switch to a 5-out offense and put Jaren Jackson at the 5 at times, they can. If Utah needs a rim-protecting drop pick-and-roll big in Walker Kessler and have Jaren Jackson Jr. roaming and blocking shots, they can. And they have Lauri Markkanen, who's going to do what he does best, and that's catch and shoot threes all over the court. Utah is going to be very good next year. That front court is going to be a lot to handle, and that's because it's 7-footers at all 3. It's incredible. And then finally, drafting, like we've mentioned, Ace Bailey at number 5 next year, who looks like he has potential to become something really special. Now, that's if he takes a couple leaps, for sure. He's got a lot of polish to do. But Ace Bailey is about the same age as the draft picks in this draft. Need we? Lest we forget, Cooper Flagg reassigned so he could get drafted earlier, so he wouldn't be competing with Darren Peterson and AJ Dybantsa in this year's draft, because he was not sure he was going to be the number 1 pick. That's why he reclassified to go 1 year earlier. That's how good this draft is. And that is why Utah will not trade up for the number 1 pick, because in a draft that Cooper Flagg did not want to compete with the top players in this draft, that's the one the Utah Jazz won the number 2 pick. And the way that the college season panned out, the number 1 pick and the number 2 pick have not adjusted, right? I think some people, including myself, wondered how good Cam Boozer would be, and he's been good. Number 3 good, though, right? Darren Peterson and AJ Dybantsa have been both number 1 good. And here's the thing. If the Washington Wizards want to draft AJ Dybantsa, that's fine, because Utah ends up with Darren Peterson. And by the way, Darren Peterson on multiple boards is still number 1. And in a lot of GMs' heart of hearts, in their deep down beliefs, you know those little pangs of fear you have where you kind of secretly know something and you don't want to accept it? And that is the fear that certain GMs are feeling right now, knowing that Darren Peterson is probably the better prospect, just better overall. Defense, offense, catch and shoot threes, pull up threes, mid-range, middies, at the rim, drawing fouls. Now, AJ has the edge in certain areas. AJ is better at getting to the rim. AJ is better at drawing fouls. We may see that change in this upcoming season with Darren Peterson because we missed some games with him, and the way the Jayhawks were coached, we didn't get to see that. But there are some advantages that AJ Dybantsa has. But those advantages that Dybantsa has are not zeros for Darren Peterson. And the other advantage that Dybantsa has is that he's 6'10" with a 42-inch vertical. And that's probably why the Wizards are going to draft him. What you do when you draft these players is you are drafting them for what they will become, not what they are now. And that is likely why Dybantsa gets the edge for the Wizards. That said, if Darren Peterson is on the board for the Jazz, they are going to be ecstatic because what Darren Peterson right now is in my opinion, the for sure star. The only thing detracting from Darren Peterson is potential health problems, which are scary. You can bet the Jazz and Wizards are looking at those medicals like Sherlock Holmes with a magnifying glass and a listening device to just make sure they understand clearly what those medicals are saying. But Darren Peterson does not have holes in his game. He does not have things that have to get better. Like pull-up threes for AJ Dybantsa is going to take a little bit of time. The off-ball defense for AJ Dybantsa is going to take a little bit of time. It's there for Darren Peterson right now. He's like, we talk about NBA-ready guys. Darren Peterson is the NBA-ready guy right now. He will come in and be awesome. He looks like a 5-year NBA vet already, and he's going to just come in and be incredible. The talent is out of this world. And you could argue he's going to get better, right? And if he comes into this Jazz system with Will Hardy coaching him, who is going to set him up to succeed like Bill Self never did at Kansas, things get exciting. That said, I'm honestly getting to the point where I'm a little terrified that the Washington Wizards are going to go and draft AJ Dybantsa. Or they're going to draft Darren Peterson, and Utah gets left to AJ Dybantsa. I would be happy. I'm fine with that because, like we said, they're both number one caliber. You win either way. And so this is a long-winded way of saying that, no, the Utah Jazz are not going to trade up for the number one pick. They do not need to trade up for the number one pick. And let's say that the Wizards do something crazy like trade to number 3 with the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies jump up because they love Peterson and they draft him 1. Turns out Utah had Peterson number 1 on their board. Well, whoop-de-doo, AJ Dybantsa is number 2. And they get the guy that most people have as the consensus number 1 pick, and things work out that way as well. The way that Will Hardy has developed prospects, I have no doubt that if AJ Dybantsa comes into this system, he can be an absolute star, just like Darren Peterson will. And that is the moral of this story. Utah wins either way. Jumping into the number 2 was the best case scenario. And getting that number 1 pick, I tell you what. The thing that Utah might have done if they were number 1 is probably trade back, right? You give some truth serum to some of those guys in the Jazz front office, and I'm telling you right now, that's something they would have thought about, okay? Because Darren Peterson is that good. He is going to fit perfectly with this Utah Jazz team. He is going to pair up with Keontae George in one of the best backcourts in the NBA, if arguably not the best. Because just a reminder, Keontae George is so much better than everyone in the league understands. And one of the reasons why the Jazz made the Jaren Jackson Jr. trade before they knew they were moving up to number 2 was the fact that Keontae George made the leap that he did. 6 percentage points better in just raw field goal percentage is bonkers. And that's the leap that he made. And if he goes up a couple more percentages, which, by the way, likely happens because he has Darren freaking Peterson joining this team and will be passing to Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Walker Kessler will be catching lobs. This is a little bit of a tangent, but things are going to go well for the Utah Jazz next year. They do not need to trade. If they get AJ Dybantsa, he fits just as well. Maybe not quite as perfectly, but he still fits the need. Guys, that's all I got to say. My apologies to Wizards fans. There will not be a trade with the Utah Jazz. If it happens, I would be absolutely shocked. But every piece of intel we are hearing is that no, that will not happen unless it's with some other team. Guys, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Shout out to the All-Stars. I appreciate you guys immensely. Your support means everything. I will talk to you next time.